everybody. This is your host, Lee Milteer. I am super happy today to have an entrepreneur with us who I consider has real chops. So I'm going to tell you about him. His name is Barry Moltz, right?
That's right. Just got laid out there.
Right there. I got the name right.
That's why my wife didn't change her last name, because she didn't want Moltz. So there you go.
There you go. So we're going to be talking to Barry about he's written, I believe, 6 or 7 books. How many, Barry?
6, yeah, 6.
6 books. And today is this book, which is How to Get Unstuck, 25 Ways to Get Your Business Growing Again. And I really like Barry because Barry has been in the trenches. And for all of you who have been with me for a very long time, you know how important that we are very pragmatic, but we're also about our mindset. So let me tell you about Barry, because he's going to help you get unstuck, that's what really attracted to me. He's a small business expert, and he gets owners growing again by literally unlocking their long forgotten potential. So he has decades of entrepreneurial experience in his own business ventures, as well as consulting countless other entrepreneurs. He has discovered the formula to get stuck business owners unstuck and marching forward. And that's what we want to do today. And as a small business expert, he applies simple strategic steps to facilitating change. He has written 6 books, which are all very impressive, but we're going to discover and discuss his 5th book, How to Get Unstuck, 25 Ways to Get Your Business Growing Again. He's a recognized speaker on small business. He's given hundreds of presentations to audiences ranging from 20 people to 20,000. He's a member of the Entrepreneur Hall of Fame. He has also taught entrepreneurship as an adjunct professor at the Illinois Institute of Technology. He's appeared on many TV and radio programs such as CNBC, The Big Idea with Donnie Deutsch, MSNBC, Your Business, and NPR's The Travis Smiley Show. He has his own radio show, and it's called Business Insanity Talk Radio on AM 560. He writes regularly for the American Express Open Forum and other online periodicals. And so welcome, Barry.
Thanks for having me.
You have a really, really long bio I could read from, but we're going to definitely put this up on our website for information. So what I wanted to really ask you first was, since you've been in business for over 20 years, what inspired you to start writing books about business owners' struggles?
Well, when I sold my last business, I had a lot of different businesses. I started my career at IBM, and then I left there to start my first business, and it went out of business. Then I started my second business, and I was kicked out of that business by my partners. And when I finally sold my third business in 1999, and paid back the bank the $1.3 million I owed them, at that time I got my wife back. And so she said, listen, you're done. No more starting businesses. Go do something else. So I started an angel investment fund, and I started writing books. So that's what I've been doing for the last 18 years.
Wow. And you have really been on the road. And I saw you on Facebook originally. And then once I saw you, it's like the universe, suddenly you were everywhere.
Right.
Once I Googled you and looked you up. So again, we want to talk about how to get unstuck. And so I love your simple format. So basically, I'm going to ask you a question.
Sure.
And you're going to tell us reasons why people are stuck and why and how they can get unstuck. So your very first chapter was business owners have the problem because they treat their business like a job. So let's talk about that.
Right. Well, a lot of times small business owners, they just really have a job because the business, Lee, is really all about them. When they go to work, they make money. When they're on vacation, they don't make money. And there's no leverage in their business. And for a lot of small business owners, especially those that run service businesses, the leverage comes in the employees. And they don't know really how to use the employees. What I mean by leverage is that you have an employee, let's say you have a services business, you charge $100 for the service an hour and you pay your employee $25. There's the leverage. But unfortunately, a lot of small business owners are organized as kind of like a hub and spoke, and instead of hierarchical, where every decision goes through them. So if they're not there, nothing happens with the business. So unless you find leverage through your employees or your products, you'll always really just have a job.
I think this is a huge problem. I think you said in your book that 75% of small businesses in the United States don't even have an employee.
Right. Well, listen, not every business is meant to grow large. And if you want to keep your business small, that's okay. But realize if the business is just you have a job, you don't have a business, because a business is something where you make money when you go on vacation. A business is something that you can sell.
So how do people get out of that trap? Because it's a huge trap.
Yeah, I think that you have to find people that you trust and actually give them real authority to get things done in the business that doesn't have to do with you. If you draw an organization chart and every single major decision comes through you, kind of like a hub and spoke, then you've got a problem. But if you have someone that says, okay, now you're going to handle this. So for example, I run a very small organization, but one of the people that works with me is a marketing manager named Courtney, and she's responsible for my radio show, right? And so she does all the marketing of the show. She does all the aftermarketing of the show, puts together the whole social media campaigns. I don't check that. That just comes out on Mondays when it's supposed to, and she does a great job. That's where you're giving your authority over to other people so you can find leverage in what they do.
So we have a group that are really real estate investors, and so they're making every single decision. Mm-hmm. So how do they particularly get help?
It doesn't mean that you're not making the major decisions, but I doubt if they're making every single decision, right? So for example, let's say they own a piece of property and something goes wrong. They're probably not going out and deciding whether they're going to replace the hot water heater, right? Perhaps a caretaker is, and you're trusting in that person's judgment. Trust is a big part of finding leverage. And I think as a small business owner, a lot of us have a hard time either not trusting or not being at the center of every single decision because we have a tendency to have big egos.
Yes, I have experienced that myself, that no one can make the decisions I can make. And I'm a big believer in having assistants, because if we think about how much our time is worth every day as a business owner, if somebody can do something for a lot less than we can do it for, cleaning your own house, cutting your own grass. I mean, unless you love to do those things, to me, this is a waste of your money, and it's certainly a waste of your talents and abilities.
Yeah, for sure. I think that you have to think about what can only you do in the organization. Everything else, someone else should do. And it's not just about people, but it's about processes. I always talk about that, people times process equals profit. You have to have processes and procedures that people can easily follow and they can replicate. So every day in a small business should not be an improvisation, right? We should not keep making up as we go along. As exciting as that can be, Lee, it's no way to run a business.
One of the things I've noticed about business owners is that we like to add on, but we don't like to take off. We like to add, but we don't like to subtract. So I think you're right that I think, we get very stuck because we actually have created a job for ourselves versus creating, as you say, a real business. And so for all of you out there who don't have people to help you, I think that should be, one of your priorities is to get that. And trust is a huge issue because everybody's been burned.
Right. And I get it. If I'm at the center of everything, I feel good. I feel important, right? This was back in the mid 90s where I would open up all the mail for the organization. This was before email was really a big thing. I knew everything was going on by opening up the mail of my company. And when I no longer opened up the mail, I really felt out of touch. But you've got to let that go if you're going to grow your business. You can't do everything. You've got to decide you should really only be doing the things that are urgent and important. A lot of times when I help people with accountability, I have them rank things on the scale of urgent and important, and those are the things you should be working on. Anything that is anything that's not urgent but important, someone else can do it, right? So you've got to decide what you're not going to do so you can focus on the most important things that will really provide leverage for your company, because that's your role should be. It should be a leverage role.
Excellent. I like that advice. So in chapter 2, you talk about a way we get stuck, which was really interesting. And, I hadn't thought about this until I actually read it in your book. You think your latest successful windfall will last forever.
Right. I mean, we all think that we've got the Midas touch, right? I mean, we've been successful at something, whether it was all you or it was luck or skill or whatever it is. And you now think that you can do anything. And it turns out that you just can't. When I was working for a gentleman in the early 90s, he was incredibly successful at setting up a computer consulting firm in Chicago. But then when he tried to do it in Indianapolis and in Atlanta and other cities, he failed miserably. And there was a certain set of circumstances that was really why he was able to be successful in Chicago, and he could just not put those things together in other cities. And so we fall into a trap. And the worst thing is, a lot of times, if we're really successful, we actually hire people that tell us just how successful we are, right? And even though the emperor doesn't have any clothes, we keep thinking we're the greatest thing in the world. So you got to be really careful. Things, just because they're going in one direction doesn't mean they're going to keep going in that direction. A lot of folks, believe it or not, are one-hit wonders.
Yes, we see that in the entertainment business, but you don't really see that in the business world that often because things just disappear. A friend of mine was putting on a seminar last year, and she promoted and promoted and promoted. And then I suddenly noticed that before the event happened, it just disappeared.
Right.
And so I called her and I said, well, how was the seminar? And she goes, well, it was awful because we didn't have enough people there. So we made up this excuse on why we had to postpone, but we really know we'll never do it because there wasn't even with our best advertising, not enough people raised their hands. So how do people get unstuck from this mindset of really, I did it once and I should be golden from here on out?
Well, I think I always go back to that Albert Einstein saying where he said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expect to get different results. So many people say, all right, it was successful once. I'm going to keep doing that thing again and again and again. I'll do the exact same thing so I can be successful a second or third and fourth time. But what happens is you get the same results. So you've got to do something different. But see, here's the problem, Lee, is that people don't change, I believe, until they're really in enough pain really to change. A lot of people are comfortable with the devil they know. So unless they're really pushed where they can't live off their current success, they're not going to do anything differently. And I talk to a lot of people who want to change, but they never do because they're not in enough pain. They'd rather stay where they're at. And so you've got to say, what can you do differently than you've done before? And that's hard for a lot of people because they're comfortable where they are, even if it's miserable, right? They get something out of it.
So a lot of people, I have noticed when their business starts to have problems, they often don't take action fast enough to be frugal again.
Right.
And you talk about that in your book. So why is it important to be frugal when numbers aren't going the way you want them to go?
Well, again, there's a lot of folks that don't keep track of their financial statements in business, and that's because they're very successful. So a lot of expenses, a lot of slop can just get absorbed. But when things get bad, everything goes under a microscope. But wouldn't it be great if I kept track of all my expenses when things were going really well? And that means that I would make a lot more money than I'm making right now. Again, people get lazy. If you, well, how can I say that? A lot of folks say, well, I can't be broke because I still have checks in my checkbook, right? And so if I have a lot of money in my checkbook, I never have to balance my checkbook. If I have no money, I've got to balance it all the time. But we can't get lazy because bad times really happen to everyone. And the test of your mettle is, how do you respond during difficult times? Listen, there's an expression that goes, Lee, that everybody's a sailor in a calm sea, right? It's easy to do that. When things get rough, how do you and your team respond?
Another thing you recommended was hire an advisory board. And I think a lot of small entrepreneurs, which we have a lot of, don't have advisory boards. I mean, they have sometimes coaches, but they don't have anyone like a board of directors inside their own business. Talk about how important that is for people.
Well, you need a perspective outside your business. And a lot of times when I come in to help companies, people say, well, are you an expert in the dentistry business? I say, well, no, I work with a lot of professionals, but I don't need to be an expert in the dentistry business because most professional services operate the same way. And the advantage I have in looking at your business is I'm not in your business every single day. It's so difficult to operate a business when you're doing it every single day. And that's why a board of advisors, a board of mentors, whatever it is really important to get together on a quarterly basis. They then, if you get a group of people together, Lee, they also then feed on each other. And you start to build on these ideas that really can get you past, where you are. So for example, I was helping a woman the other day who sells to the plus size marketplace, right? And she didn't realize that she was selling to the plus size marketplace. She thought she was just selling one single product. And when I told her that, well, you're really selling to a plus size marketplace who want to use products just like everybody else, except you're giving them a special adapter so they can use it because they're larger in size. She goes, oh yeah, that's the business I'm in. I never thought of that. And she's been doing the business for 5 years because these people are not in the business. They can help you.
Wow. Fresh eyes I think are extremely important because a lot of times when you do have a board of directors or a coach or an advisor or a consultant who comes in, they can see hidden sources of income in your own business.
Right.
When you see that, Barry, I mean, where are the areas that you look for to see hidden sources of income that could be there?
Well, the first thing is really, what is your gross profit, right? And for those that aren't familiar with those terms, what is your revenue minus your cost of sales or service? That's your gross profit. The higher your gross profit is, the more chance that you have an opportunity to make profit at the bottom line. So if your gross profit is 90%, you have more of a chance of making a lot of money than if your gross profit is 30%. So you've got to look at the gross profit. Now, I was helping a client once where their gross profit had always been 40%, and the business was around for 20 years. When they hit a downturn, they said, well, we gotta try to make more money at what we're doing on less volume. They then, for the first time in 20 years, Lee, went to look at how could they make more money at the gross profit level, and they actually found it. And the CEO came to me and said, God, I wish I had found that 20 years ago. But they didn't because they weren't looking, because they were already making enough money. So look in your gross profit. That's really the first place. The second place is look for any overhead that is not attached to actually making money in your business or selling or marketing, things that are not directly related to you making a profit. And as a business grows, we get more overhead. We get more comfortable, so things just come along for the ride. And those are the kinds of things that you should look at trying to cut. The ideal business is where all of your expenses are variable, they're not fixed. You want your expenses tied to your sales. You don't want fixed expenses where you always have that expense no matter what your sales are. And unfortunately, as we grow businesses, Lee, we get more and more fixed expenses because we become comfortable.
Yes, I hired a marketing manager a few years ago, and every week, Barry, it was, oh, I need this service to be able to get images, or I need this service. And the next thing I knew, my credit card fixed expenses, this person who I'm hiring to do all these things literally was outsourcing every damn thing I was hiring her for with these fixed expenses. The other thing that she did that was a real problem for me is that she got me so wound up in technology that I couldn't do myself, nor anybody else in the office but her could do. Now suddenly I'm cornered. That I have all this heavy technology machine that's running, that we have to have this high specialized, can write code person. It took me a year and a half to unwind this problem once I fired her, because again, she created this, I call it the endless ball of twine that would not undo itself. So for anybody else has that problem, pay a lot of attention to a staff person who is adding to your fixed extensions. And I will tell you, that was, a massive learning experience for me. And my new attitude about business is more simplicity. If I need a service, I can go in for a period of time and get it. But if I don't need it forever, then, pop out.
Right.
In chapter 4 of your book, I really related to this because I have so many personal one-on-one business clients, and it is, you let your emergencies dictate your plan.
Right.
So I'm finding that the average investor, the average business owner is not really acting in life, but they are reacting to markets, to news, to trends, which may or may not be their trend, but they're pulling the trigger on things too quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I really believe that particular chapter was really for people not getting the things done during the day that they wanted to get done. I mean, people confuse being busy with being productive. Being busy is just doing stuff. Being productive is getting the things done that's going to move your business forward. And we live in this world of interruptions. And in fact, I believe we get addicted to interruptions. In fact, if we don't get interrupted right away, we're looking for interruptions. Squirrel, what's really going on? Because we have a really hard time focusing, and reacting to the emergencies makes us feel good, like we're actually solving problems and making a difference. But responding to emergencies, Lee, is just being tactical and just responding. What you really have to do is, the night before, pick the 2 things that you really want to get done the next day to make sure that your day is successful, and do those things first, or carve out a time during the day where you're going to do that and nothing else will enter. And if you accomplish those 2 things, the day will be successful. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to spend your whole day doing that, but carve out an hour or 2 to make sure those things get done. And don't let the day control you. You've got to control the day. And too many times, the people also that work for you, they're constantly interrupting you and constantly giving actually you things to do for them. Yes,
I have heard many business owners say, I'm not sure who works for who. And I have felt that way myself, particularly with this marketing manager we just talked about, who was like, I need a new video. I need this to give away. I mean, it was just this constant drain upon my creativity and profit making, that this employee was constantly dictating to me every day, I need.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of that, you are not a big fan of multitasking, I can see, and I agree with that. So talk about how that's not really for your highest best.
Well, again, I think people have to understand that really your brain can only do one thing at a time. And what multitasking is having your brain switch very quickly to focus on different things at different times. I really believe that we can get our best work done, be the most creative by focusing on one thing at a time. I call it striving for minimal achievement, right? Just focus on this one thing. And it's really kind of interesting. I'm trying to see where this thing on my desk is. I actually have a little sticky that the way that I focus is I have a little sticky note that just says focus, right? And whenever I get off focus, I look at it and go, focus, focus, focus. And there's a lot of techniques you can have to do that. But if we can just focus more for a short period of time, I think we will do our best work. When we multitask, Lee, we're just kidding ourselves that we're actually getting more done. While we may get more done, we get it done less well, right? So focus for things for a short period of time. But I know it's not as satisfying as doing a zillion kinds of things and we feel really important. That's not the way to do it. Your brain is not constructed that way.
So one of the things that I'm noticing about you, Barry, is that you are really talking a lot about certain belief systems and mindsets that people have that they're operating from without realizing that that belief or that mindset or watching other people is not beneficial for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, again, another belief is that being busy is a good thing. And one of my coaches, Victoria LeBaum, said that what people really do is they compete with each other and how busy they are, right? Oh, I was really busy today. Well, that's nothing. I was really, really busy today. Let me tell you what I did. And that should not be a badge of honor of how busy you are. It should be how productive you are. What did you get done today, Lee, that really mattered? Now, this is especially a problem for small business owners because in the beginning, they just want to be busy because if they're busy, they think they have a business, right? They just want to do some kinds of work. And that's not really a path to success. You've got to get profitable work done. You've got to be building something. And in fact, being busy just takes you off where you really want to go.
So I like in your book you said create a don't do list.
Right.
I don't think I've ever seen anybody write that before.
Yeah, and this is really important. In fact, Steve Jobs, they say that when he used to get together every Monday morning with his managers, they would figure out what not to do rather than what to focus on. Because I think the things you say, I'm not going to do that today, are just as important as the things you say you're going to do today. Because there's only so much energy you have, and if you can decide what's not important or things you're not going to focus in on, one of the biggest problems that a lot of small business owners have is that customers come to them and say, I know you're not really in this business, but could you do this for me? And it is really hard to tell people no. Now, sometimes the suggestion they are making is a new idea that should be in your business, and it's hard to differentiate between the two of those. But you've got to learn to say no. You've got to learn to say no to things that aren't your core competency. You've got to learn to say no to customers that aren't going to be healthy for your business in the long run. That is really important part of the equation, Lee.
I think that's great advice. You also talk about it's very important, and you're talking about this a little already, to slow down the flow when you're setting your daily plan. To just really slow this down so that you're more effective. So how do you do that?
Well, why I do that is I turn off all my notifications during the couple hours where I really want to focus, right? I turn off the phone. I turn off all the interruptions from social media. I'll close my door, right? I'll really focus and say, this is what I got to get done right now. And it's hard because so many times I want to get distracted. Like I'm facing a tough problem and I want to escape it by checking social media or checking my phone. And you really got to stay just right there. And that takes a lot of discipline really to do, and you've got to push through it rather than going towards a distraction right away. And I've done things like I put rubber bands on my phone, right, so I can't open it up, or I have a screensaver that says it's locked for a reason, stupid. Things that make sure that I try to help myself not to get distracted. And you can put a sign up in your office, whatever it is, what is going to help you to get focused and what time of day works best for you.
Yes. So just to prepare for you today, I got up a lot earlier than I normally do. I reread sections of your book. Right. I actually typed out the introduction to be familiar with it. I cleaned my office so that there were no distracting things around. There's a big sign at my door saying, don't disturb me unless there's blood or fire.
Right. In that order?
In that order. I unplugged the regular phones and the fax machine. Right. And I had the dog put up. So that is, and I'm a big believer, if I don't really create the environment and lock it in, that there's something external that will mess it up.
Right. Right. And it's easy for things from the outside to come in. There's a lot of distractions out there. And again, I believe that we are addicted to distractions because there's so many things going on in our environment. We're much more comfortable that way. And to actually focus on one thing at a time, Lee, is abnormal these days.
Yes. So you've mentioned social media some. So let's let's just talk about what an addiction that really is.
Mm-hmm.
And all the mindset stuff about, you didn't use the word we get endorphins, but we do get endorphins from emergencies and being important and the distraction. And we would rather look at social media than have to deal with conflict or have to answer someone who was, difficult. We all feel that way. So besides the rubber bands and the signs and all of that, how do you not let yourself get lost on social media?
I think it's hard because social media is designed to keep you there and to keep you distracted. I mean, there's the endless scroll, right? You keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling in LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. And I find myself sometimes, Lee, late at night, I will get mesmerized and literally have to take myself away, or I'll see my wife doing the same thing. I'll say, honey, it's time to go to bed. And we're just there. We just keep going. And so it's hard. We're also, I believe, the reason we're on social media is that we're looking for connections to other people, and we don't see those people in person. So we're trying to get them online, and they're just so weak that we just want more and more and more. I think that the way to short circuit that is, first of all, depending on what you're using social media for, right? If you're using social media for business, have a strategy when you go on at a certain time during the day when you actually do it. What are you really trying to accomplish? Or use a tool like Sprout Social or Hootsuite or Meet Edgar, where you're scheduling your posts and then you're responding during a certain part of the day to whatever people, however people interact with you. If you're doing it for social, again, set some kind of limit. But I think that the facts are that a lot of people go on social media because they want to feel better. But I believe a lot of people go on social media and they actually feel worse, because now you just found out that a friend of yours just won the Nobel Prize and the Pulitzer Prize in the exact same day, right? And makes you feel bad, right? Because what you're doing is you're seeing the highlight reel of their life and you're living through the whole reel of your life. So I think it's it's a trap, and you have to be very, very careful. I mean, I like going on social media for business, so I do that one time during the day, and at night I look for it socially. And I try to limit the time to 10 or 15 minutes, because I think you can connect with people that you haven't seen for a long time and know what's going on with them, but also can be a bad thing too, Lee.
Yes, and I like what you said about you're separating your time out. I have found social media to be depressing. Because, people are begging for prayers. They're showing me food. I don't care about food to be seen. It's just some crazy stuff. And, we do get very lost very quick. So thank you for the hints on that. So also, since we were talking about the whole concept of emergency plans, talk about how important it is to delegate and how you delegate to take work off of you as a business person.
Again, we talked about this earlier. If you don't delegate things and you're doing everything yourself, you're going to be in the office working on Saturday when your employees are out on the golf course, right? And remember, you're not building a business and let other people make real decisions and do real tasks. That's really where, Lee, you find the leverage in your business. Think about this. If someone's going to come along one day and want to buy your business, if your company is just all about you, it has very little value, because when you're no longer there, nothing really goes on. But if your business is about something else, if it's about the brand you've created, if it's about other people, it's about the product, then it has real value. And without delegating it, you really have nothing. Again, depends on, Lee, what kind of business you want to build.
So another chapter that you have is you never take a break or a vacation from work. And all of us are very guilty of this. So why should we take more vacations and breaks?
Well, it's interesting because for me, my kids are now in their 20s, but then when they were 8 and 10 years old, every 2 years, we went on a 2 or 3 week vacation where I didn't take my cell phone or my smartphone and didn't look at the internet. And it was really a time for me to get away, and it would accomplish two things. One is I could actually connect with my family, and that was a time where I could tell my kids not to be on their smartphones. Now I can't because they're in their 20s. And also it was a time for my brain to wander. And I think that if your brain doesn't wander, you really can't be creative. Now I will tell you, if you take a break from social media and from email, from the internet, it is really hard the first couple days. But after that, you realize how much time you really have to do other things, to actually let your mind wander. And Lee, I will tell you, I've come up with my best ideas when I've been on vacation, let my mind wander. Or you don't even have to do that. You can go out during the day and go for a walk and don't bring your phone. Let your mind wander. Go for a bike ride. You will come up with your best ideas because your mind's able to free associate and put things together they normally wouldn't. It is really important to find places in your life every single day where your phone or work or whatever it is, they just don't enter. You need to give yourself a break.
Yes, I'm a big believer in starting off with what I call an idea day. And, all the CDs and newsletter packets that we get and specialized books and things that we don't ever have, we don't give ourselves time to read. We actually have the time. We just don't take it and use it properly. So the real secret is that you go to like a hotel room or somebody's guest house. You leave your computer, you leave your cell phone somewhere else, you pack in your lunch, and for an entire day, you absorb things and you're looking for the big new idea. So Bill Gates is very famous for taking 3 days and going off somewhere into nature, and there's no kids, there's no wife, there's no nothing, and he really just thinks for 3 days. And then there's another famous billionaire who takes 2 weeks to do that. But if you could just start with 1 day,
right, or 1 hour, or just take some break. You got to start somewhere. It's very, very important, because I will tell you that you will come up with your best ideas when you're away.
So how do you get past it seems like an endless amount of work? Because I don't know about you, but there are days that I think I need to have 10 Lee Milteers.
Yeah, well, for me, I just decide, again, what's urgent and important. What has to get done today will be productive. And I said, all right, the other stuff can get pushed to tomorrow, because I don't believe to-do lists are really great because they're endless. Ruthless prioritization, Lee, is so important. What are the 2 things that get done today? Anything else is really a bonus. You've got to kind of separate those things out, and whatever can happen tomorrow happens tomorrow. Whatever happens today happens today. So for today, I know the 2 things that I need to get done, and I will work on those things first. And today will be successful if I work on those things, and I let go of the other things. Those are for tomorrow.
Yes. So do you prioritize and say these literally are the 2 most important things on earth today?
Absolutely, because they're so for example, let's say I have to do an interview like you. If I'm not ready for that interview is not going to be effective, so I need to get that done today. Or a presentation I'm doing is due at the conference today. If I don't meet that deadline, then that's a problem. So I focus on what those things are for today, and everything else could be for tomorrow, and that's okay, because no matter how much, there'll always be more work, Lee. There just is. That's just the life we live. And you can't run any faster. It's like being on a hamster wheel. You're not going anywhere, and you've got to be able to just focus on a handful of things. And that's why saying no is so important.
So when your kids were younger, you took this, 2 or 3 weeks vacation. So now the kids are gone. Are you still scheduling in a lot of vacation?
Yeah, they still come with us. They still say, Dad, if you keep paying, we'll keep coming. I mean, our last trip was to Vietnam and Cambodia. Before that, we're in Rwanda and South Africa. And they've been great. And we go for 2 weeks. And it enables us to connect for a short period of time. Now, they spend more time on their smartphones than I would like, but I'll take what I can get. And I spend a lot of time just writing in a journal.
Yes. I think entrepreneurs and business owners we have a terrible habit of putting our family in like on the back burner, and we're really doing all this for being part of the family and being connected to the family, and nobody ever is on their deathbed wishing they had worked more. So is part of your plans a retirement in the future or anything like that?
First, I got to decide what I would do if I retire. I think that I'm in my late 50s, and I think that I've got probably 10 more years to go. But really, what am I going to do? I think that unfortunately, most of us, having your own business is hard on your family because we have a tendency to work a lot. But I think somewhere along the line, it's important to take time out for the exact people that you're working for. And I know when I go away for 2 weeks, Lee, I miss some opportunities, but you have to think about what you gain rather than what you lose. And I think that's a choice you have to make.
I think that's really brilliant of you to say that. What do you have to gain instead of what you have to lose? Because the average entrepreneur, that's exactly what they fear. I know when I was just a professional speaker, and it would seem that the 2 weeks I would take for vacation would be like 3 of the best in the
exactly.
year.
Exactly. Why did it all happen during those 2 weeks?
How can this happen? I mean, how can those 3 invitations come in the 1-2 weeks I decided to take?
Right.
And I was guilty for a few years of actually canceling my vacation and doing the gig. And then after a while, I was like, by the time I canceled, paid all the fees, made everybody upset, it wasn't worth it.
Right.
It was never worth it. Okay, another chapter that I was really fascinated that you wrote about how to get unstuck was that business owners take dangerous risk instead of calculated actions. So explain this. How are they doing that?
Well, I think that there's some kind of bravado mythology in our society that we should take these bold risks, just play it all out, go for broke, right? And, when we make it, wasn't that person brave? But I don't believe that's the smart entrepreneur. I believe that the smart entrepreneur makes a decision, sees if there's success or failure, makes another decision based on what just happens, makes another decision. They're taking very, very small steps, right? And constantly improving on what they're doing. And again, if you go back and you look at all the different things that the very successful entrepreneurs did, they took a lot of very, very tiny steps over a very long period of time. They didn't just leap forward bravely, I say bravely, right? And have no fear, right? It was very, very calculated, or they made a lot of very small decisions. And I believe in making small decisions rather than making big decisions, because small decisions are safer. You can recover from small decisions. Sometimes you can't recover from really big, risky decisions.
And so you've hinted that ego is part of that because we're trying to prove ourselves.
For sure. Listen, ego is what makes entrepreneurs successful, because I wrote my first book. It was called You Need to Be a Little Crazy, The Truth About Starting and Running Your Own Business. Actually, have your own business, you got to be crazy, because if we knew what was going to happen, we never would do it. So ego is a big part of why people succeed. Unfortunately, ego, Lee, is a big part of why people also fail.
Yes, yes, and we see that all the time. And just because they succeeded at one thing, they think as you've spoken of before, they think they can succeed at everything. You'd rather go big or go home. You see, the Facebook is perfect for that, right?
I mean, again, not every business is meant to grow big. There's nothing wrong with having $1 million business where you bring home $300,000 or $400,000 a year. You have a handful of employees. You can be very happy for that. In fact, most of us are not meant to run $100 million or $1 billion companies. We're just not. There's so few of those that are out there. Small business is really made of people doing less than $1 million a year.
And you say that small business failure rate is enormous. Almost 44% fail in the first 3 years.
Yeah, I think it's really high because it's easy to start. It's easy to get those initial customers, those early adapters, perhaps those people that are related to you. But it's really hard to move from the early adopters to people that might want to buy it later. It's very, very difficult. It's not for everybody.
I love the examples that you gave in your book, and it's actually on page 59, where you talked about like big companies who made really stupid mistakes. These are hilarious. Harley Davidson tried to get into the perfume business.
Right. Right.
That's hilarious.
So they must have been using your marketing person. I don't know.
Yes, absolutely. Colgate thought it could go from toothpaste to kitchen entrees.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Lifesavers wanted to add soda to what they sold, but consumers did not want to drink liquid candy.
Right.
Oh, this was great. Ben Gay tried to create aspirin, but nobody wanted to swallow anything they sold.
Exactly. You got to think about what is your brand known for, right? And every brand has a brand promise, and whatever you're going to do, any line extension, it can't conflict with that brand promise. It just can't. You
also have a statement here I just love. I've actually written it down. It says, when you find yourself in a hole, stop digging, which is, of course, a quote from Will Rogers.
Right.
So when people find themselves in a hole, stop digging. So what else should they do?
Well, I think, again, the problem is they keep saying, all right, if I find myself in a hole, I'm going to work harder, I'm going to work faster. The people that are smart actually know another expression, when to hold them, when to fold them. There's a very well-known entrepreneur in Chicago that runs a series of restaurants called Let Us Entertain You, right? And he knows when to keep the restaurants open. He knows when to close them. Entrepreneurs have to understand that it is okay to give up. It is okay to stop doing something, learn what you can, and then take another chance and do something else. We have a hard time giving up because, Lee, we are a stubborn bunch. We don't like to say uncle. We don't like to admit failure. And sometimes the best thing you can do is to quit and go do something else.
Yes, and again, that is very hard on all of us because we're not wired like average people who are focused on security. We are wired to be creators and deliberate creators and
right.
Moving. And when I asked you about the retire thing, people occasionally ask me, what are you going to do when you retire? And I'm going, I'll probably never retire because what would I do with myself?
Right.
I have to have a meaning every morning that I get up there.
Right.
So if I go more than 2 weeks without a meaning, I become depressed.
Right. Right. Absolutely. I mean, that's why I think the people, like when I help people sell businesses, Lee, the first question I ask them is, what are you going to do the day after you've sold your business? And if they don't have a good answer, they're not ready to sell their business because it is a very difficult transition for a lot of folks.
It is. It is very, very difficult. And, we're just not wired that you're going to go play golf every day or just take art classes.
Right.
That's not going to happen because then we got to figure out how to make money from the golf.
Right.
Exactly. Okay. So on chapter 7 of your book, and this is the last one we're going to do, even though I'd love to do them all 25, but it says, we get stuck because we think the only alternative to success is failure. Now, this ties into everything we've talked about.
Right.
So talk about that. You think failure is not an option?
Well, that's the whole thing in our society, right? From the Apollo 8, I think it was the Apollo 8 or Apollo 11 mission, Apollo 8, I think, where the flight director said failure is not an option. Well, failure is actually a pretty good option. It happens most of the time. People think that being in business, it's black and white. There's either failure or success. Most of the time, it's just different shades of gray, right? I don't believe that failure is good or bad. A lot of people think that failure is such an important part of success. There's a lot of people that succeed all the time and never fail, and there's a lot of people that fail all the time and never succeed. Failure just is. And I think it's how you handle the failure. When failure happens, you can't get stuck in it, right? A lot of people can't leave failure. You have to you have a pity party, you cheer the darkness, it's okay, you feel bad about yourself for 24 hours, but then you say, all right, what can I learn from this right now? And then you move on and you give yourself another chance at success, take another action. That's really what we have to do is, all right, this happened, let me see what else I can do now to re-evolve it, to throw it up in the air and mix it a different way. That's what is very important to do. Don't get stuck in the failure, but also don't get addicted to your success.
So one of the things that was very beneficial for me in your book was you talked about the language we use influences our feelings and actions. So for example, you said learning to call failure something neutral, like decision point, disappointment, outcome, or results, helps you move forward. So could you go a little deeper into that?
Failure is such a finite word. And in fact, in a lot of cultures, I talk about in my second book, Bounce, you can't come back from failure. Like in a lot of the Eastern Asian cultures, once you fail, you're kind of branded for life. I think that we're very fortunate in this North American culture where we do get multiple chances. I mean, what Americans really like is the comeback kid, right? We like giving people second chances. We like people that really come back. And our culture really allows us to do. Don't let your worst day of your life define you. Don't let one failure define you. That's why in my introduction, I always say, I've had 3 businesses. The first one out of business, second one I was kicked out, the third one I sold. I see that as a process of success. And that's okay. We're going to have ups and downs. It's how you deal with them.
Yes, it is how you deal with them. And a quote you used from Robert Frost said, "The only way out is through."
My favorite quote of all time. Because I think that so many of us avoid things, right? So many of us say, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this. The only way out is really through. I've been doing, you mentioned you have some people that are martial arts. I've been doing Seido karate for 17 years, right? And of course, I'm afraid every single time I step on the floor to spar with someone. But again, the only way out is through. And the more practice you have is being afraid and going and doing it anyways, the more successful you'll be.
Well, I think this has been a really good discussion, Barry, because the whole topic of your book, how to get unstuck, because as soon as you give a business owner, an entrepreneur, a new avenue that they can jump on, they will drop whatever fears and doubts and ego and everything, and then jump on the solution and go forth. And sometimes we just get in our own way. In fact, every day our real enemy is ourselves.
That's right. That's right. It is ourselves, right? We've met the enemy, and it really is us. It's what's going on right here. It's all the self-talk, right? And we have to figure out ways with other people's help, like yourself, to really adapt and maybe take away one roadblock that can help us get to where we want to go next.
Yes, and so what would, in conclusion today, what would you like to share with our folks, and you know who they are, about how that they can get unstuck no matter what they're doing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really a believer. I talk about striving for minimal achievement. One of the reasons that so many people in the United States don't stick with going to a health club is because they sign up on January 1st, they go 4 days a week, and then the next week they go 3 days a week, then 2 days a week, and they burn themselves out. Try one. We talked about a lot of different things in this last section. Try one change that you want to make. Do that to its completion, and then try a second one. Don't try to change 10 different things at one time, because that doesn't really work. Make one change, and you have more of a chance of being successful in that area, Lee.
I think that is brilliant advice. And often every morning I always say to myself, if I can only get one really big thing done today, what is that going to be?
Right.
I just focus on that one thing. And, it's the Scarlett O'Hara thing. I'll worry about that tomorrow.
That's right. That's right. And if you get that one thing done, you feel good that you actually accomplished something today, because a lot of days you can just feel like, crap, the whole day went by. What the heck did I do?
Yes. Last week I got, on a particular day, the big thing I got done was I fired 2 people, and I was so excited. I fired a service, and
Right.
I fired a technology service. So there was actually a lot more people involved in that. But I had felt like I was cornered by them. I felt trapped by them, and I didn't like that feeling.
Yeah.
And so being free from that influence where I could do other things was very freeing up, that could move my business in different directions.
I think once you make these decisions, you feel a lot lighter. They're hard to make sometimes, they're hard to act, but they're necessary. and just don't put them off. As Nike says, just do it.
Just do it. Just do it. So Barry, give us your how to get your website to get in touch with you.
Sure. You can go to just my name, BarryMoltz.com, BarryMoltz.com. And I'm Barry Moltz on all the social media handles except for Snapchat. I never figured it out.
Okay, that's great. Well, Barry, thank you very, very much for your time and energy, and we really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Lee. Thanks for everything you do. Bye-bye.